The PC Engine launched on October 30th, 1987, with a grand total of 2 games. If that doesn't sound like much, don't worry, by the end of the year they get that total up to 5. It takes a long time before a game console launches with any significant number of games, and the first couple of years are always slow. Hudson helpfully numbered all of their HuCard releases, and Bikkuriman World is Volume 2. And the other launch game is Volume 4. What happened to Volume 1? Well, we're going to have to save that story for a few days still. Now, before I get too far into this game, I want to take a moment and do something that I'll revisit a few times in the early days of the PC Engine, and that's take a look at what's happening on the Famicom. The PC Engine is the competitor, of course, so what's it competing against? And fortunately, there's a very similar game released the exact same day, Dragon Slayer Jr. Romancia, a side-scrolling action RPG. Now, if you think I'm intentionally picking out a bad game to make the PC Engine look better, my other option was Hoshio Miru Hito, so I'm actually being a bit generous here. If we flip back to Bikkuriman World, well, I know which one of those I'd rather play. The first question when it comes to Bikkuriman World is, what's a Bikkuriman? Bikkuriman is a brand of snack that has 2 wafer cookies with chocolate filling in between them. As a marketing gimmick, every Bikkuriman came with a collectible sticker. This was fairly popular, and then in 1985, they introduced a new line of stickers, Angels vs. Devils. And that became a runaway smash hit with school kids. They were the thing to collect if you were an elementary school student in Japan in 1986. The line of stickers was so wildly popular that it got its own cartoon, and then this video game based on that cartoon. However, rather than make a whole new game for Bikkuriman, Hudson used a trick that had worked for them before. Wonder Boy was an arcade game that was originally designed by Westone. Sega owned the name Wonder Boy, but not the game itself, and so Westone licensed it to Hudson, who turned the sprite for the hero into a caricature of one of their own employees, and published it on the Famicom as Takahashi Meiji no Bokenjima. What worked once should work a second time, and Westone had made a sequel to Wonder Boy called Wonder Boy in Monsterland. Once again, Sega published the arcade game and owned the title, but not the game. So Hudson could change all of the characters out for Bikkuriman characters, and there you go, a whole new game. It's not even the last time this is going to happen to Wonder Boy in Monsterland, since Jalico will do the same thing and replace the character with Son Goku. Not that Goku. And publish it on the Famicom as Sayuki World. And incredibly enough, Hudson's going to do this exact same trick again with another game on the PC Engine. And if you thought things were confusing now, just wait. In Bikkuriman World, you're a hero who's tasked by Super Zeus to kill Black Zeus. For some reason, this will restore peace to the land. The hero sprite is barely changed from Wonder Boy. It's just the shopkeeper graphics and the bosses that are updated to Bikkuriman characters. They also changed a couple lines of text, like the very first sign that you encounter that welcomes you to Bikkuriman World, except the land in Bikkuriman World is actually called Tenseikai. Bikkuriman World's just the name of the show. There were Japanese players at the time who were a bit annoyed that the game Bikkuriman World was such an obvious cash-in, and it really didn't offer a lot of Bikkuriman content. As for how the game plays, well, you immediately get a sword and can start chopping up monsters. While the game's laid out as a side-scrolling platformer, you have to collect resources to buy better equipment. Otherwise, when you reach the end of the game, you're gonna get hurt. Money drops from enemies that you defeat, or could be found hidden at various points. You just jump into those spots to make cash appear. And there's never enough money. Upgrading is very expensive, and unless you're collecting every penny that you come across, you're going to have a hard time affording even basic equipment. There's 4 pieces of equipment to upgrade: armor, which reduces damage, shoes, which let you move faster, shields that block attacks, and swords that dish out damage. The armor, shields, and shoes can all be purchased in shops that you find on the way, but sword upgrades are only obtained by defeating bosses. Besides the shop selling equipment, there's a few other places you can visit. The hospital can restore all of your health to full, but the price goes up every time you visit. At the bar, you can purchase drinks that will restore a small amount of health, but there's a 2-drink maximum and they won't let you back in after that. There's also hidden doors, where you can get items to pass along, eventually getting your choice of an item to guide you through the maze that's the final stage, or an item that will do significant damage to the final boss. Initially, you get hints when you pass by these doors that you should do something there, but eventually you just have to either know that it's there or try everywhere. There are also magic shops where you can buy spells. Spells come in 4 varieties, and you get a limited number of castings whenever you buy one. Spells also drop from tough enemies later in the game, so unless you're specifically stocking up, then you probably don't want to buy them. The spells are bombs that travel in a short arc, fireballs that are aimed directly at whatever enemy you're currently fighting, tornadoes that travel along the ground and bounce after they hit things, and thunder that just damages everything on the screen. You cast spells by pressing down on the controller, and as far as I can tell, there's no way to choose which spell you're casting. You just have whatever item you picked up last selected, and if it runs out, then it rotates to the next one. There are also items that you can collect from enemies. The helmet reduces damage that you're taking. The gauntlet lets you do double damage. The shoes let you float slowly downward after a jump, and the cloak makes you invincible. All of these are temporary power-ups that go away after you use them, so when you find one, take advantage of it. There's one more usable item that you get at the very start of the game, and that's a potion that will refill your health to maximum when it runs out. However, you only get one potion, so hopefully you can make it last. If you do run out of health entirely, then you can continue the game where you left off by holding down up and pressing start, and you'll go back to the start of the stage that you died on, but keep all of your money and equipment. So it's possible to grind in Bikkuriman World, as long as you don't mind losing your score and potion. And you actually might want to keep that score, because when you reach certain thresholds, you gain an additional point of maximum health. Technically, on every stage in Bikkuriman World, your goal is to collect a key and then get to the exit gate. Except there is no exit gate, you're just not allowed to leave until you get the key, and the key is almost always with a boss in a room right next to the exit gate. Something to be careful of with those bosses is that when they die they explode into a fountain of coins, but you'll exit the room the moment you touch the key. So if you can jump over it to collect the rest of the money, you'll have an easier time. And speaking of time, one of the distinctive features of Monsterland carried over to Bikkuriman World is the timer. There's an hourglass that's always dripping away, and if it runs out, then you lose a heart. You can refill the hourglass by picking up other hourglass icons, or ducking into a bar. Restoring your health at a hospital will also do it, but I think the bar makes more sense. After this, Hudson will release another Bikkuriman World, I don't know if I can call it a game, but they're going to release something else based on that. Eventually, they'd also re-release this game, but because the license expired, they changed the sprites again, and released it as Shin Takashi Meijin no Bokenjima, not to be confused with the other PC Engine game, Takahashi Meijin no Shin Bokenjima. At the time of its release, there were Japanese fans who were disappointed by the lack of Bikkuriman content, and Sega fans who declared Bikkuriman World a rip-off of Wonder Boy and Monsterland, but they weren't a huge group. Bikkuriman World was one of the best-selling PC Engine games, and these days most people are pretty happy with it as a really good port of Monsterland. And I can't really dispute that. If you wanted to play a vintage port of Wonder Boy and Monsterland, this is the version. Of course, these days it's pretty easy to get the arcade version, but it's all here for you. The controls do feel a bit slippery. it makes the platforming a bit harder than it should be, but that's also true to the original game. All in all, Bikkuriman World makes a pretty good showcase for the PC Engine's capabilities, and it's probably the most playable of the 1987 releases.